Hello everyone, and welcome to the workbench. This is a big one. This is an important video because I haven't really seen any tutorials on how to do this for the engines. But you'll see here, we have Hot Wheels RC cars. You can find these on Amazon. They're about $15 to $20 depending on if they're on sale or what kind they are. Sometimes they're different prices for different kinds of cars. But today I'm going to show you how to convert Tomy and Trackmaster engines to remote control with these Hot Wheels RC cars. So some recommended tools have a screwdriver, obviously, but there are a lot of different sized screws, and specifically this bit here is a triangle bit. And now Trackmaster 2 and 3 engines I've found, maybe even some Trackmaster 1, use that triangle bit. And you can instead use a Torx bit or an Allen bit of whatever size you need, but the triangle one will help in most cases because it won't strip out the screw. But to start, most of the Tomy engines and Trackmaster just use Phillips head. So that's what I'm using. You can find a kit like this on Amazon for not that expensive, maybe $10 to $15 for a bunch of different screws. So to start off, get into Thomas. We're going to unhook his gearbox from the chassis. So unscrew him. And if you already know how to disassemble Thomas and all the Tomy engines and stuff, this should come easily. It's just a matter of splicing some wires from the RC stuff into the Tomy stuff. Now, a useful note for the gearbox, this battery contact already has a hole drilled into it in this protrusion. So, what we need to do is disassemble the gearbox to get to that piece of metal. This motor is a little dirty on the inside, so I have some patches. I think they're rifle cleaning patches that I got for cleaning, because they don't leave any lint or dust. They're very reusable if you'd like. So I just have those on standby, hundreds of them. So we can start taking all the little gears out, and if you have a paper plate or a little bowl, it's good to keep those in. Now there's one more screw in there that we're going to have to remove. Not the motor first. All that stuff first. And then the motor can come out if you desire. But the metal in there is tension fit in, friction fit. So now that we have this battery contact exposed, we're going to set that aside. And I'm just going to clean up those gears really quick. That gear's not too dirty, and everything else looks pretty good. So, wipe this off a little bit. Now we can move on to the disassembly of one of the cars. Charging cable, car, and your controller. What I like to do before every single conversion is break this guy open before I disassemble the car, pop some batteries in, and just check to see if the car works to begin with. There's a power switch on the bottom here. Flip that. And yes, it does work. So, that being said, put the battery cover back on, and we're gonna tear this thing open and gut it. You can use a pretty standard screwdriver Phillips head. I have a couple that come with just like model kits or furniture kits on Amazon or IKEA or whatever. So any Phillips head really works. Get in there. There's just two Phillips heads that keep the chassis to the shell. That just slides out. And then these are the guts of the machine. These are the important parts. The rear axle is just friction fit in with this plate. So if you just push up on the rear axle, the whole thing pops out. Set that aside. Keep these peeled up, and these are the little independent motors that power the wheels for the steering. So if you peel these up a little bit, get some scissors, and just snip very closely, as close as you can to the motor itself. Just like that. Then you can remove the retaining part of the shell for the rear axle. Now you're just left with the battery and the chip. If you just slowly and carefully peel up the battery, you'll find another Phillips head. This one's very tiny, so if you have preferably a smaller Phillips head, that'll work much better. Just be careful sticking your screwdriver around there, because there's a lot of soldering and pins that you don't want to mess with. Carefully take that screw out, and then you can lift the whole assembly up. This is the most important part. This is the heart of the RC engine, and it's so small that it works incredibly well in a lot of the engines. I have found that some of the newer ones, specifically Donald and Douglas, that's a really tight fit to make this chip fit in there. So I'm currently working on modifying them for a client to make that work, and I will make that work. However, there are some, like Henry, the CGI version, does not work. That requires taking a lot of material out of Henry, and I'm not personally comfortable with doing that. So Donald and Douglas, it's much less dramatic. But when we get to the Trackmaster 3 and Trackmaster 2, I'll show you my method of making those fit, because it involves a little more nip and tuck surgery than just the normal Tomy engines. But it still does work very well. So once we have this separated from the car, just peel back the wires. And I personally use motor 2. If you look on the chip here, I'm not sure if the camera will pick this up, but be very careful with these wires when you move them around, because the solder points are delicate. They're very small, thin gauge wires. So motor 1 is on the top here, this top set of wires, when you have the connections on the left. And motor 2 is the lower set of connections. I don't like to snip motor 1 just yet. I like to have the engine all connected and running before I do that, because it's nice to have a backup pair of wires and a backup connection to do. But with motor 2, all you have to do is hook up the positive wire to the negative terminal on the engine, and the negative connection to the positive terminal on the engine. That's all you need to do. So to do that, I have to strip these wires I'll show you my method for orienting this correctly. I like to keep in mind now that the switch for turning it on and off is right here. So I like to have you flip the lever on the engine forward, as well as flipping the switch on the chip forward as well. It's easier to remember than if it were flipping the switch back against the lever on the engine. So to orient that correctly, you want to look at the engine, and you see the negative and positive terminals marked on here. You want to have your red wire, which is the positive. Get it from motor 2. And you put it straight through like that. And you get the wire, the blue wire, the negative wire. I like to wrap it around the red wire, just as a little anchor point, so it doesn't rip out of the soldering point, since it's going the other direction, because we sandwich the battery back on top, and that holds the wires in place. And keep these wires out of the way a little bit. So, both the red and the blue wires are snugly fit. You can tug on them a little bit and they won't pull against the solder points. That's very important. Now that they are facing the correct ways, you want to have your, again, positive forward, negative backward, opposite of what it says on the engine. If you are doing motor 2. If you're doing motor 1 and you accidentally mess up the 2 wires from motor 2, then it will be reversed. You just put positive to positive, negative to negative. I don't remember what effects that has on the engine, but you can absolutely figure that out yourself. So, now for the absolutely delicate part. That should be enough room to loop it through the front terminal, and let's see how much room I would need. The motor is going to be sitting about there, so I can trim the wire there. I'll be safe. And I'll even back it off a little bit and trim off less, because it's always better to trim off less than more. You can always go back and trim off a little more if you need. And have I followed that advice myself all the time? Absolutely not. I have trimmed wires way too short and regretted it so many times, so in we go. You want to be very careful and just slightly nip the coating of the wire. Go around and kind of do 4 little marks. Just deep enough to cut the rubber, not deep enough to cut any of the metal on the inside. Very gentle. Now, I'm actually going to put on some gloves for this. So what I do is I just grab the right wire, get at the connection point, and pull, and it's not enough. There we go. Don't pull it off all the way, just enough so that you can grab it and twist it. You don't want to do it too much, just to where it looks really braided. And pull up a little bit more, twist it some more, give it a good one, and then it'll just slide off. Now, if that doesn't get twisted well enough, you want to grab a pair of tweezers, stick them on the end, and just try to spin as best as you can. You want to make sure that your tweezers are not overly sharp, or just be careful, because these wires are incredibly thin and fragile, and if you break any of them, your engine's performance will suffer, I've found. Sometimes, especially the Trackmaster 2 and 3, they use a different connection method for the batteries than these, and it's much harsher on the wires. So it tends to cut the wires itself, and the engine's performance suffers sometimes, but there is a way to remedy that I will get into. So once this wire is all nice and braided, you want to get your battery connection that you set aside, the terminal from the engine, and let's see. The better way of doing this, I found, is you go from the back. Loop it in from the rear, bring it around to the front, bend it so that it kind of hooks in there, and then you want to make sure, actually you can do it from the side here if you'd like, just pull the excess over and you just want to twist it around to lock in the wire. Because all the wire is doing is transferring electricity. That's all it is. It's just positive to negative and negative to positive on the battery connections. All the chip does basically is just control when the engine is on and the polarity of how the engine drives. So if you can do this with your fingers, with gloves preferably, because the oils from your fingers get all over everything. You want to, it's pretty much necessary to wash your hands before you do this. Once it's all twisted, you don't want to do too much, because again the wires are very thin, they will snap. You just want to make sure that they are not fraying and they're tight to the connection, tight to the metal, so that it gets a good transfer. You could go really hardcore with this and solder it on, but again, I don't have a soldering iron yet. And anyone can do this, really. If you have an X-Acto blade and a little bit of money to experiment with on, you spend $20 on the RC car, and if you have an engine, you can try this on. There's no harm in doing this to the engine. You're not subtracting anything from the engine, you're just adding to it. You're just upgrading it. So all you really have to do is experiment with the RC cars. Once that is all twisted and nice and secured, you can go ahead and connect this and then reassemble it. Because once you have a big bulky gearbox hanging off of the motor, that's how you can rip solder points. And anyway, you just want to keep this protected. It's delicate. So we're gonna trim this red wire now. Very careful. Just breaking the surface of the rubber, not to cut any of the wires inside. Steady hand helps this. Gloves help this a lot. Again, just pinch and pull. Try not to be too forceful. And it's sliding off a little bit. There we go. Twist. Twist, twist. And like pull, twist some more, and it's off. Go back here on the engine, from the back, loop it in forward. You pull so that there's just a little bit of wire coming past the connection that way, so that when you grab your tweezers, pull the wire around, you have a little bit to spin around. Alright. Just pinch that on there. And there you go. It's fully connected now. So now you can go and reassemble the gearbox. And be very careful. Don't trim these excess wires off yet. Just keep them to the side. Since your gearbox is stripped down all the way, you want to put this piece in first, and it fits over the top, sits in the front of the gearbox just like that. You have the lever that turns them on and off. Put that in there. Next, you have the cover. Now, the rest of the gears can go in. Alright, now that that is all set back in there, can reassemble. There we go. Sometimes it takes a bit of finagling to get that reseated, make sure all the gears are in place. So, screw this back together. Okay, and now hook Thomas back up. You don't have to put his parts back in, all of his parts back in yet. This is just to see if he works or not. Thomas just has not run for a little bit, so his motor was kind of stiff. But there you see, he works perfectly. So I'm gonna reassemble him all the way. I'm going to be very careful trimming these wires because the battery wires are right next to them. You also want to make sure that you're trimming the correct wires and that you didn't just snip off the ones that you connected. So, if you want a little more tension, you can pull that, stretch it back a little bit, or if you need a little more room, you can pull it, bend it forward if you want. It's nice and adjustable. And an extra step that I like to do, which I should have done before, but I forgot. They sell these rolls of sticky dots, little glue dots, on Amazon. So what I like to do is, since it needs some space, the battery needs a little cushion until it hits the bottom of the plastic. Layer up the glue dots. So if I put 2 there and feed underneath, try not to get stuck to it myself. That will grab on and stay put, so it won't jiggle everywhere. I can move it back a little bit so it clears Thomas's boiler. And just like that, you have an RC Thomas. I'll demonstrate him. Boom. And he's stuck. Nice. So, an extra step that I like to do is on the controller, since it's just acrylic paint, you can remove that with said cleaning patches I mentioned earlier and rubbing alcohol. You can just rub out a bunch and it comes off, and I make stickers for the engines and I put them on the controller so you can tell who is who, and it's really fun. I mean, it's what I also find out with the motor 2 conversion in particular, the steering buttons affect the speed of the engine. So if with motor 2, left is faster and right is slower. So I'll demonstrate. Slow him down all the way. There's 10 speed settings total. So that's a crawl. I speed him up all the way. He zooms off. And then on the top, he has a boost button. So you can press that right out of the gate. I like to have him moving before I press it because it's kind of a shock on the gears. It goes really fast. I'm gonna have to clear some space for that. My work area gets so messy because of this. Watch out, Gordon. Oh! Well, the rivalry continues, I guess. Enjoy your RC Thomases if you decide to go that route. I'm going to show you how to do the conversion on tender engines next, because it's a slightly different process, but it's the same principle of just connecting two battery terminals. And I'll give you a quick rundown on how the chip works as well. So, to turn Thomas on, what you would want to do, this LED light on the controller, if you can see that, that will be off. So you want to press any of the buttons to get it working, so it's flashing. Then on the engine, flip the switch, turn the engine on, so the battery terminals are actually connected, and then the engine will pair itself. When it's paired, you have about 5 minutes or less, maybe less, until the engine goes inactive, and you will have to flip the switch off and back on again to wake it back up. And you'll be able to tell because the LED light will have gone flat, it'll turn off, and if you press the button, it'll start flashing again as if it's unpaired. So that's how you work it. I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you again for watching. I know this video is a long time coming, but life is turbulent, and I take it as an opportunity to improve and improv. And yeah, I'll show you what I've got going on in the backyard, because I've got some big things going on, some big ideas. This is the new project. This layout will be a Tomy Trackmaster garden layout, and this is the area that it'll be in. It is about a 40-foot long run. It's about 11 feet wide, and I've already sketched up the entire layout. It includes a river, Gordon's Hill, actually Gordon's Hill right where I'm standing, Ffarquhar Quarry over here, Henry's Forest over here. It'll be a lot of work, and I don't know if the Tomy track is up to it. But we're gonna find out, because I've never seen this done in this kind of scale. So, join me for the ride as I endeavor on this journey, and we'll have some fun. Thank you for watching.